Hello and welcome back to Arsenal Analysed. Today I am joined by Neil as we look to break down, discuss and react what was an absolutely fantastic game of football at the Emirates Stadium against Liverpool. I think we can safely say that we're back in the title race. Smiles on our faces, a little bit of relaxation in the air. It could have been a very, very different mood right here, right now, had the result have gone a different way. But before we hear a few words from Neil, if you are looking forward to today's show, we've got loads to break down, loads to discuss. Go ahead and smash that like button for me. And if you're new around here and you enjoy instant reaction and analysis, subscribe because we've got some brilliant games coming up to break down. Return to knockout Champions League football, for example. But that's a future show. Let's reminisce in the moment. We don't often beat Liverpool, and especially on occasions like this. So before I give my thoughts, my sort of raw reactions, if you will, Neil, how are you feeling after that result?
I'm a little bit in shock because there was a lot of pressure going into this game. This game meant it's either we're in it or we're not in it. And big up Rancid Pumpkin. Listen, I really admire the way we came out in that first half. I really admire the way we use Martinelli's pace. So it was a game. It was a game of two halves, and we'll get to that probably. But I'm in a little bit of shock, and I'm still like last season, taking one game at a time. This was, so let's go, man. Big up the Arsenal.
Big up the Arsenal indeed. And as you've just probably read through a few of the comments there, giving your thoughts, there are some very happy and excited Gooners in the chat as well. I'm sure that some people will probably find it difficult to sleep this evening, just out of the pure excitement of beating Liverpool 3-1. Like I said, it's not something that we've been able to do all too often in our recent history, given the beast that they are and where we've been as a club. But today's result just goes to show how far we've come and what it means to Arsenal in terms of being written off so early in the season. There are a lot of critics saying that, Arsenal season was already done regardless of today's result. But I think it narrows it down to just 2 points now between Arsenal and Liverpool at the top of the table, with Liverpool still having to play Manchester City this season. So it does seem as though it's going to be a three-legged race all the way up, hopefully, until the end of the season. And I think one thing that we have to give credit to Arsenal for is last season, whilst it was, a very difficult thing to do, go toe-to-toe with Manchester City, I feel like winning the league this season, if we do eventually pull it off, is that much more difficult, because last year it was just between Arsenal and Man City, whereas this year Arsenal, City and Liverpool. So there's an extra team to contend with, an extra team that we have to keep an eye on the results of, for example. And it's going to be an exciting end to the season, that's for sure.
Yeah,
As you said, we are going to break things down. Sorry, what was you going to say?
I was just going to say, with it being a three-legged race, with Liverpool being involved in this season versus last, we have a Liverpool that is going to be Klopp-less come the end of the season. And I want to believe by that type of announcement, it puts some level of intensity into the players that they want to deliver something for the manager at the end of the season. So, there's also that element for us to also contend with, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's going to be a huge narrative for Liverpool and the Premier League between now and the end of the season. And I think when you look at the way they beat Chelsea in their previous fixture, I know that was at Anfield and it's a different atmosphere and it's a different space, but a lot of people looking at that game and the way they kind of disposed of Chelsea, thinking, is it going to be, more of the same again today against Arsenal, where there is that maybe that sort of psychological edge due to the history of this fixture. But honestly, this is absolutely huge in the grand scheme of things. To come away with 3 points, there are obviously plenty of talking points for the game, whether it be sending offs, whether it be VAR decisions, whether it be, mistakes for goals. Normally you see, one really, really big mistake every few weeks, but we were treated to 2 in 90 minutes today, it seems. But we'll definitely go through everything in much more detail in just a moment. Without giving too much away for what we have stored in the show, Neil, is there anything else that you want to say just generally in terms of how you're feeling right now?
Listen, man, I'm really happy that we got a win like that against a team like that at this point in the season where we are right now. That's what I want to say. I think it's going to be very important that we build on this. So yeah, man, it's let's go. Come on, you Gunners.
Absolutely. And as per normal, we are going to look at things from a tactical point of view. There were a few things that did go on in the game that we can talk about briefly. I don't think it was one of these like huge kind of tactical battles where it was kind of like, Arteta made one move, then Klopp tried to counter it, or vice versa, your move next type of thing. It definitely didn't have that kind of vibe to it in this particular fixture, although there were a few tactical decisions I want to touch on. But first things first, taking a look at Arsenal's shape. I suppose the only sort of small difference here that you could comment on, really, a couple of things, is we see Martinelli taking up a position on the pitch that we're very typical, or we're used to seeing, high and wide, pushing the right back of the opposition as far back as possible. Even when Jesus is in the side, he always seems to be in a much more advanced position. Kai Havertz coming in today, making up what was a box midfield, not necessarily your traditional number 9, not necessarily the way that Jesus plays, overloading things in midfield. And Liverpool did look to change things at half time. They pushed both Curtis Jones and McAllister slightly deeper, which gave them that control at the beginning of the second half. And then finally, we are so used to seeing Zinchenko playing in that left half space, next to a Declan Rice or a Jorginho. But we can see here that he is playing as more of a traditional left wing back, left full back. And it begs the question as to why he was taken off at half time. Was it a tactical thing, or was it an injury? I didn't hear anything through the commentary whilst watching on Sky Sports personally. If I have missed something, please let me know in the chat, or whether or not Arteta said anything in his post-match comments. But for me, just given the sort of position that he's taken up, knowing how dangerous the Liverpool wingers are, it seemed to me more like a tactical decision. I could be wrong. Neil, what did you make of this?
Usually you would hear something by now about that type of switch by halftime, and I want to boil it down to it being a tactical move versus something was actually wrong with Zinchenko. I mean, could be, but that's still up in the air. But from the look of things, the way how the second half panned out, I want to believe that it was more tactical than he was forced into that change.
Absolutely. I think when you look at it, maybe Arsenal were looking to set up more defensively, even though we went in at the break at 1-1, and we will discuss the first half in more detail in just a moment. I think Arteta, after that first goal went in, Arsenal definitely didn't have as much urgency in the press, for example, in wanting to attack. And maybe he's seen something by bringing Zinchenko off, who we know isn't as good defensively. What he offers from an offensive point of view and from a passing point of view, we know he's absolutely top-notch, one of the best in the league at that. But in a game of this magnitude, sometimes it's those fine margins and those fine differences that make such a big difference. And one thing that I found really interesting was normally you'd see quite not necessarily like a similar shape to the opposition, but maybe a slightly a shape to sort of counter the way Arsenal set up. Arsenal have been playing like this for a very, very long time now, but this was quite an odd average position map, if you will, from Liverpool. Very, very compact, looking to force Arsenal wide. And that isn't something that, Arsenal would be surprised by. We're often forced wide against lots of teams who play a deep, compact, low block. Liverpool obviously weren't set up like that today. But I was very, very surprised to see the way Liverpool had set up in the middle there, the front three being fairly obvious. But I know you probably haven't seen this prior to literally 30 seconds ago, but what do you make of that?
Well, just going back to the Zinchenko swap at halftime, just before getting into this, I believe what I heard from the commentators is that I think it was an instruction by Mikel Arteta to Zinchenko to stay actually more the left back position versus his normal role in the midfield. And I guess that wasn't really working out. So then that's why he brought in a natural left back in the likes of Kivio. Going back to this now, I'm looking at how congested it is there in the midfield. But that box that was created by the inclusion of Havertz really helped that congestion and actually force the ball out wide to the likes of Martinelli, where we actually utilize his pace against Konate, which really actually worked out for us, because as strong as Konate might be, he's not as quick as Martinelli is. And Martinelli probably really liked that, and he felt good about it. That's why he actually kept going. This guy kept going. And he was upset that he came off. So that's good.
He was,
I was really happy to see that, because it says a lot that it says that he's raring to continue. And Mikel Arteta, I guess, just being a little bit precautionary, because Martinelli has a tendency to go over the board and go a little too hard and get injured. So saving his legs in the long run. But this congestion played into our hands, I believe.
It did, yeah. We have to look at the way Liverpool do like to set up now with Trent. He plays a more of an inverted role now, sort of bringing the formation and the system up to speed with other modern sides like Arsenal and City, for example. And that obviously left a lot of space in behind for Martinelli to expose, dragging the likes of Konate out of position, as you've already said, meaning that other central midfield players have got to drop into that space. And that's where Arsenal really did look to hurt Liverpool early doors. And if we do go into the first half now, let's bring up the stats of the game here. We can see fairly equal game in terms of stats, if you will, in terms of, maybe Liverpool had a bit more possession, but Arsenal had more shots. So it wasn't as if one side, in my opinion, really ran away with things. If we have a look at the momentum map here as well, it was very kind of back and forth. There wasn't one side that necessarily dominated the whole game. You could argue that, up until the sort of 25th minute, like we said, Arsenal really kind of did dominate before dropping off slightly. And then Liverpool looked to maybe kind of dominate the first sort of 15 to 20 minutes of the first half. So I wouldn't say that, any one side really particularly took full control of the entire 90 minutes. We could look at the first half here, Arsenal limiting to Liverpool to 0 shots. And then in the second half, very kind of equal in terms of shots shared, but Liverpool kind of nudging it just on possession there in the second half. But let's break down the key moments and the goals of the first half. If you are enjoying the show so far, do go ahead and smash that like button. It really helps me and the channel out. And if you're new around here, don't forget to subscribe either. So, Neil, first question I want to ask you with regards to the first half is, just before we got the goal, we'll go through the goal in a bit more sort of detail in just a moment. We scored that on the 14th minute. But in that first sort of 14, 15 minutes, Arsenal came out very fast. They had a really high press. They were really quick with that press, especially in Liverpool's sort of third, if you will. And they were very successful in winning the ball back and forcing mistakes from Liverpool. And when Liverpool did go long, Arsenal did find space. There was that opportunity that Martinelli came up with in the 10th minute down the left-hand side, where he crossed it into Bukayo Saka and he just missed the header. Again, looking to expose the space left by the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold and Konate. But my question to you here is, how important is it that Arsenal get off to these fast starts and build this type of confidence in the first sort of 10, 15, 20 minutes?
How important it is? I think it's 3-1 important. It's that much important. That's the impact that we have once we get off on the right foot. And when I say the right foot, I mean we start quickly, we start confidently, we start aggressively. We literally take the game to the opponent. A lot of people, I'm sure, was very, very on the fence about Arsenal going into this game. Even I was. I was like, Liverpool did a very good, convincing performance against Chelsea midweek. Going into this game, we've had a very, topsy-turvy type of recent form, and having a game at the Emirates, I think the pressure is on.
Yeah.
And pressure was on. It's a game that's gonna either keep us in the fight, or it's gonna kick us out of the fight. And I guess that resonated with the players. I guess Mikel Arteta was able to really, put that into their minds. Like, listen, guys, you have it in you. You could do what you can. You can take this game to them. Take the game to them. They don't have the Mo Salahs. They had Darwin Núñez on the bench. Even like the players like Thiago Silva, like Thiago Alcantara. He's on the bench as well. Like, these are influential players that are
influential.
Yeah, they're not in the team right now. So we have a game plan. Stick to the game plan, and it worked out for us.
It did indeed. We were rewarded with our hard work and our patience and sticking to the game plan, as you say. Arteta is obviously drummed something up, found areas to expose in midweek, and Arsenal really did look to execute that game plan in the early parts of this game. As we just kind of alluded to a moment ago, Arsenal really, really unlucky around the 10th minute to actually not go one up through a Martinelli cross to Bukayo Saka. And it was just 4 minutes later that we had to wait for the first Arsenal goal of the game. And it came from kind of what I was mentioning a minute ago, in the sense of Arsenal were applying a lot of sort of pressure in that final third, Liverpool's final third. And there were occasions where Liverpool did get forward. They did manage to beat the press. And this was one example here where Liverpool beats the press and tries to push into not necessarily a really high line, but leave enough space in behind for Arsenal to expose. And we can see here, as Martin Odegaard has the ball around the halfway line, Virgil van Dijk is caught out of position. Trent Alexander-Arnold is up here on the right-hand side. And you've got both Martinelli and Kai Havertz asking that question of Konate: where do I go? Do I mark Martinelli? Do I mark Kai Havertz? Because there's all this grass to run into. And it's a fabulous, fabulous ball from Martinelli in the end. From Martin Odegaard in the end. Perfectly weighted ball. And we can see here that he hits the ball, Kai Havertz. You would half expect him to score from here, let's be honest. Yeah. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about it now. But the ball does bounce off of Alisson and unfortunately into the path of Bukayo Saka, who effectively has an empty net to put the ball into. So a really, really good move from Arsenal. In terms of analysis, I suppose here it's all about the speed and urgency of Arsenal and the clever sort of pass from Odegaard and the vision from Odegaard. But from a Liverpool point of view, how annoyed must you be that you've allowed Arsenal to get themselves in the position that they've got themselves into? And what I mean by that is, you've got Konate isolated on the back line, Virgil van Dijk and Trent Alexander-Arnold out of position against an Arsenal team who are absolutely electric going forward. So how annoyed do you think Liverpool fans might be with this type of goal?
I think they're going to be fairly annoyed because they know that we're a counter-attacking team. They know that we have the pace, we have the quality, we have the technical ability. Like, why play such a high line? but I guess it's part and parcel of having to want to go for it as well. I think, if you know the way Klopp wanted to probably go into this game is probably, he wanted brimstone and hellfire. He wanted to bring this game to the Emirates. But it just didn't work out for him. And we have to be honest too. Like, this was favorable. This goal was favorable because surely, we're gonna look at it now and say, we scored 3 goals and we beat Liverpool at home. But at the same time, 2 of those goals came quite generously. You would think that Alisson would have done better there, that by palming the ball off, but it played into Saka, and Saka, finished it.
Yeah, there is that, the air of fortune, if you will, and sometimes you do need a little bit of that against the bigger sides. But then you've also got to look at it from the point of view of, some of these players like Bukayo Saka being in the right place at the right time, so that when these balls do fall into these areas of the pitch, the reading of the game, anticipating, what if Kai Havertz doesn't, score the goal. It's really, really good, intelligent play from Bukayo Saka. We are going to look at the Liverpool goal now in just a second. But before we do, something I want to just kind of speak about very quickly. Now, Arsenal dropped off after their goal. The level of urgency wasn't as much as it was in, say, the first sort of 15 minutes as such. It did definitely slow down. And Arsenal very much in cruise control, limiting Liverpool to, very few opportunities. They in fact, they didn't even have a shot on target in the first half. So very much kind of dominant performance in that first 45. But my question to you here before we look at Liverpool's first goal is, some Arsenal fans are quite happy to see this happen. Arsenal kind of drop off and be a bit more calculated in the types of attacks that they have, look to exploit Liverpool on the counter attack because they know that Liverpool have got to come at Arsenal. But other Arsenal fans want Arsenal to go for the jugular, get that second, get that third, go in at half time. The game's completely killed off. Which side of the fence do you sit on?
Well, it's never bad to go for the jugular. I think you want to try to kill games off as early as possible, and try to ride the wave that you currently have in your possession. But at the same time, we kind of learned from last season that when we were doing that to some teams, it requires large amounts of energy to do that. And we have to remember that, how it kind of panned out for us. We lost a shit ton of steam from being that type of team last season. And you have to also be aware of your opponent and what they're capable of doing. Now we literally should have done better with that goal that we conceded from Liverpool. We literally gave that to them. But in terms of us having to go for the jugular, I think that's a matter of knowing who's in front of you, understanding the type of opponent you have, and you go for the jugular if it's available. Like if this is a team that you're playing that you can kill them off in the first 25-30 minutes, then do it. If not, you have to take a calculated approach because you have to be aware of who you're playing. I can't stress that enough.
I do agree. And, prior to Liverpool scoring their goal, we'll take a look at it now. I'll bring it up on screen for everyone to see. As unfortunate as it is, and I'm sure a lot of Gooners probably won't want to watch it back. But, at this point of the game, we can see on the clock here that it's the 48th minute. There are literally seconds on the clock. And, Arsenal, Arteta fans are probably quite happy going in at the break at 1-0, regardless of whether or not you feel Arsenal should be going for the jugular, or whether you're someone who feels that, it's okay to kind of sit and be comfortable, whichever side of the fence you want to be on. I think most Arsenal fans would have been, fairly happy at this point. But unfortunately, we can see here that I think it was Gravenberch plays a ball, a simple ball over the top, just asking the question of Arsenal defenders and the Arsenal goalkeeper here. If we move the ball on a little bit, Luiz picks the ball up inside the 18-yard box. He's still got an awful lot to do. And with the way Saliba has played this season and the quality we know he possesses, you do expect him to deal with this, especially with the trailing Gabriel coming in to help just a few moments later. Now, for one reason or another, we're all entitled to mistakes, regardless of how good you are at football. He tries to shield the ball. Maybe there is a lack of communication. This is just speculation. I don't know this. Maybe there's a lack of communication between Saliba and Raya. Should Raya be coming for the ball? Should they be communicating with each other? Is it half a dozen of one and 12 of the other? It's one of those big questions. And unfortunately, it's Gabriel who ends up giving the goal away, who arguably isn't really involved in the mistake.
Yeah. Fortunate.
There's been a lot of conversation around, should Saliba have just cleared his lines? Possibly. Is it a lack of communication? Probably a bit of both, if I'm honest with you. And then, as we know, the ball eventually is nicked by Luiz.
Yeah.
And just being an absolute nuisance, really. And it goes off Gabriel. How did you see this one? Is that a fair assessment?
It is a fair assessment. But looking back at it now, it's making me think about, yes, Rancid Pumpkin, it's definitely a lack of communication. But I would like to see a more commanding role by the goalkeeper. Like, you need to be, you should be, like, in my opinion, I feel like Raya should be able to pick up, almost like he should be able to read the mind of Saliba and say, oh, he looks confused, I'm gonna go get the ball. Who I clean up, I clean up. Whoever ends up on the floor, I don't really care. The ball is in my possession after that. And I feel like that should have been a Raya's ball 100%, because it seems as if Saliba kind of put himself in a position where he was running out of ideas. And it's then I think it's the onus of the goalkeeper, because the goalkeeper, you command in your back line, you're in charge. You need to tell them, you need to speak to them. So I feel like while it might be a lack of communication, it should have also been a more commanding take or go after by David Raya. That's my take on that. I feel like he should have done better.
Yeah. It's one of those, isn't it, where I don't think that there's, necessarily one person that you can completely blame.
Yeah.
Raya definitely should have done a lot more and should have done a lot better. Mm-hmm. And, there are questions as to whether or not Saliba should have just, should have seen that, Raya wasn't coming for the ball and maybe should have done something else as well. So thankfully, we don't have to worry about it too much because we've gone on to win the game.
Yeah.
But at half time, obviously, there's a lot of frustrated fans. Obviously you look on social media, we're part of many WhatsApp groups, a lot of frustrated, in some cases, very angry fans. Because, it's not often you play against Liverpool and limit them to 0 shots on target in 45 minutes. Yeah. And it was starting to be a little bit reminiscent of that game we played against them in the FA Cup, not in the sense that we didn't score a goal against them, but in the sense that we were the dominant side, but it felt like we were going to walk away with no change. Yeah. Thankfully, that wasn't the case. But let's take a look at the second half very quickly. Obviously, there were 2 goals, which we will go on and analyse in just a moment. But my question here to you, Neil, is we didn't see the third goal of the game, Arsenal's second, until the 67th minute. We already talked about those tactical changes with regards to Zinchenko coming off and Kivior coming on, and the likes of McAllister and Curtis Jones playing slightly deeper in midfield so they can look to control the game from a slightly deeper area. And it looked to work, because for that first sort of 20 odd minutes or so, whilst Arsenal did have chances, they were few and far between. If we have a look here, I've just highlighted the second half only. Liverpool enjoying 62% possession. But early doors, they had 2 or 3 shots. It felt like that goal just before half time really kind of rejuvenated what they wanted to do, gave them a lifeline, and kind of switched the momentum of the game. So, what were your thoughts on that first sort of 20 minutes before we look at the goal?
I was worried. I was like, with that goal coming before halftime, and then the way that they started that second half, I thought it was going to be like a friggin' avalanche. I feared that. They had some McAllister especially took some pretty good looks at goal and tried his luck. He had a few of them going not that far off, but with the possession and this is just strictly the entire second half you have highlighted here, right, Jake?
Yes, this is the second half for now.
So 62% possession by Liverpool, but it shows what that box midfield did. It really, while they had opportunities going into that first 15-20 minutes of the second half, they weren't really that threatening. They were worrying at times, but not super threatening. And as much as it shows that, yes, ball possession is good. This is like a reverse of the FA Cup game. We had tons of possession, we had tons of chances, but it didn't really pan out. They had some chances, but tons of possession. That's a lot of possession. 62% is a lot of possession, but were they progressive in the play? And it really wasn't. So I guess this is something that we can now kind of hopefully build on. Like, we don't need to have all of the ball to really affect the game. It's because our off the ball movement in this game was actually very, very killer. I love the way we were moving and defending off, out of possession.
Yeah, well, it just goes to show, like you say, the fact that Liverpool had 60+% possession in the second half, but they're only managing to get just the one shot on target. It just goes to show that the areas in which Liverpool are taking those shots, are far more of a risk for Liverpool. Arsenal probably quite happy for Liverpool to be taking shots from those areas. So yeah, I absolutely agree. Moving forwards, it's got to be a huge positive for Arsenal. But as I said, we are going to look at the third goal of the game, which is Arsenal's second. And as I mentioned earlier on, normally you have to wait a few weeks before you see two fairly big mistakes in Premier League games, but probably not the best use of words, but we were treated to two in this game, if you want to describe it like that. And this is the beginning of the move. And it's again similar to the Liverpool goal, with Gravenberch playing a fairly simple ball over the top to just basically ask the question, put it in a dangerous area to see what happens. Very, very similar here. We can see the ball is already on its way into the Liverpool half. And if we move it on, we can see that, Gabriel, Martinelli just keeping Liverpool on their toes, keeping Liverpool under pressure, making sure that it's not an easy back pass from Virgil van Dijk to Alisson. He allows the ball to bounce, which is mistake number one. Anyone who plays football, even at a basic level, never let the ball bounce. If you do let the ball bounce, you make sure you get your second ball. And that was the undoing, really, is the second ball. Because by the time Virgil van Dijk looks up to realise he's in no man's land, he can't slow himself down in time because he's got Alisson running at him rather quickly. And they eventually collide. And to Martinelli's delight, as we can see here, it falls to his feet and he's got an open goal to stick the ball into. So there's not really too much to analyse with this one, because it is just a number of really fortunate circumstances on Arsenal's half. But obviously Martinelli doing all of the right things by putting Virgil van Dijk under pressure. But what makes this goal all that much better from Arsenal's point of view is Virgil van Dijk and Alisson are arguably the two most experienced players, not only in the Liverpool side, but on the pitch entirely. So they must be absolutely kicking themselves. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts, while they made a complete, they shit the bed. Let's call it as it. They shot the bed. However, let's look at, if you go back just a tad when Alisson was just about coming out and Virgil van Dijk, just looking up, realizing like a little bit more, right there. Martinelli has the intelligence to kind of stop his run if you notice his position. To say, you know what, let me hold up here a little bit because this looks like it's going to be a shit show. And it turned out to be a shit show. Like the ball played, it's something that it's very rare, and we should probably frame this and put it on our wall because this is probably not going to happen in another very long time. You're not going to see, because Van Dijk, Alisson, these are world-class players, right? He's a world-class goalkeeper. Van Dijk is a world-class defender. And you're not going to see two world-class players that is on the same team making this type of mistake.
No.
This is clear and plain communication, zero communication. Van Dijk was speaking Dutch and he was speaking Portuguese, and wires got crossed. No one understood. No. So, it's something that we have to just, say thank you and just move on, because I hope that some of the fan base don't get carried away with this type of win against Liverpool. We have a long season ahead of us.
We do.
I don't want to sound like gray clouds and rainy and whatnot, but we have to take these wins and learn from everything, because this was a gift. This was a gift, so we have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, we have to build upon it. Because as you say, these sorts of things, that they're not going to happen every week. They do happen in football. It's nice to see that, Arsenal do have one on their side for a change. It doesn't happen all that often. We've got two more things to quickly discuss before looking at a couple of Arsenal players who played exceptionally well today. But before we do that, as per normal, do go ahead and smash that like button if you are enjoying today's show. And don't forget to subscribe if you're new around here as well. So we are going to take a look at, I believe it is the sending off for Liverpool next. Really straightforward one. Konate was already on a booking at this point. If we get to the actual challenge itself, where is it?
There it is, right there.
There we go. So the reason, I'm sure a lot of people already know, and I do apologize if I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but the reason why this was a second offence, why the referee probably didn't kind of maybe give him the benefit of the doubt is, it's the 87th minute. The game's on a knife's edge. Arsenal are looking to counter, and Konate has blatantly stopped Kai Havertz from making a breakaway run, really leaving the referee with no other decision than to book him, which was his second of the game, and to send him off, which really did open things up for the last 10 minutes because there were 7 minutes added on. So at this point in the game, there were 10 minutes left. Any arguments? Was it the right decision in your opinion, Neil?
Absolutely, 100%. And credit to Kai Havertz. He's just been a menace in the entire game, man. He like we have to kind of look at the way he impacts the game. It's not typical. It's not a way that Saka or Martinelli would impact the game, or Martin Odegaard would impact the game. He impacts the game quite differently, and he's a menace to some of these defenders. Look at Konate's position. Like, he's caught out. He can't do anything.
Massively.
But with a rugby tackle, that's the only way that would have stopped Kai Havertz. And he, shame on him for not, is either you get sent off and you miss a game, or you let the player through. Let the player through. You're already on a yellow card. Maybe leave it to Alisson to maybe stop him.
Especially at 2-1 as well, when you're chasing the game, momentum's in your favour. Liverpool, as we've just seen as well, were very, not, I wouldn't say necessarily on top, but they were given a lot of possession of the ball. And there was a stat that came up on screen on Sky Sports that said that Arsenal and Liverpool were top of the tree in terms of most goals scored beyond the 90th minute mark. I think it was 7 each. And coincidentally, Arsenal went on to score a third goal in the 90-plus minute mark of the game, which we have up on screen now. And as you mentioned earlier on, Trossard coming on for Martinelli, who was not happy. But I think, like you say, it's a good thing for these players to want to stay on. And as we move this picture on now, there is a lot of space there was already a lot of space in this area of the pitch, as you alluded to earlier, with the likes of Konate having to kind of pick up two people when Trent Alexander-Arnold was out of position, who'd gone off at this point of the game. He'd been substituted off as well. And it was Harvey Elliott that was tasked with kind of picking up this area of the pitch. But if we move on, we can see here that Trossard really does absolutely send Harvey Elliott to the shops before making a very, very direct run, which is the last thing you want as a defender. Now, for me personally, we've gone on a bit too far. For me personally, I didn't expect Trossard to shoot from this angle. But I suppose given the time of the game, he's probably had a look over his shoulder on to his right-hand side and seen that Arsenal players are arriving, fairly late into the box. And he's asked the question of Alisson, just have a shot, get it on target and make Alisson work, which is exactly what he does. And as you can see here, it goes through his legs and ends up in the back of the net, making the last 5 or 6 minutes of the game very, very comfortable for Arsenal. Because, as I said, it was on a knife's edge for quite a while. I'd say that last sort of 20 minutes after Arsenal got the second. What were your thoughts? How relieved were you when this went in?
Listen, Trossard sent, what was his name? Harvey Elliott?
Elliott, yeah.
Sent him for 2 hot dogs and a half pack of cigarettes. Because, listen, that was disgusting. Like, seriously, bro. Like, come on. Like, that's, to me, individual goal of the season. Individual goal of the season right there. Like, Trossard that was just so disgusting. And I'll say this as well. I saw a little bit of a deflection off of Van Dijk's foot. And it was just not a good day for Van Dijk or Alisson today at the office. It was just bad. It was just one of those days for them. Yeah. But this was a disgusting goal. Alisson checked back Trossard in 9 months. You may have a kid for him. It's something else, man. Like, I cannot, like, I've always rated Trossard, and I think he does very well against Liverpool. I actually thought that Trossard would have started down the middle today for Arsenal. He went with Kai Havertz. That also worked out. So in hindsight, it all worked out. Very good day today at the office.
Very, very good day at the office. And you are right with regards to Trossard starting through the middle. I at one point, when I saw that he was coming on, I thought he was coming on for Kai Havertz, to be honest with you, because Martinelli was having such a good game on the left-hand side and causing so many problems. But we've seen now in the space of a few weeks, Gabriel Martinelli coming on for Trossard and scoring a couple of goals, and now Trossard coming on for Martinelli. So they seem to be pushing each other every single week, and I welcome it. Please. Yeah. I want to see more every single week.
Now we are very healthy.
Absolutely. Now we are going to look at some Arsenal players to finish up the show. As I've said in previous shows, thankfully we've been in a position where I think since we've started redoing these shows on the channel, Arsenal have won every single game. So we've spoken about players for good reason as opposed to bad. And it'll be more of the same today. Positives only, given the results. I've just seen a comment coming in from the chat as well. I don't want to talk about the following scenes. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'm sure the celebration police will be out in full force this evening, no doubt. I think the two obvious players for me, being a former midfielder myself, to talk about here would be Declan Rice and Jorginho. I highlighted in our group chat at halftime just how well they were playing together in midfield. So let's take a look at Declan Rice first. Every week he surprises me. Every week, more and more. I don't understand how we got him for £105 million. I know it sounds stupid saying that out loud because £105 million is a lot of money. But honestly, I've run out of things to say about Declan Rice. He was absolutely everywhere today. He won every second ball. He read the game incredibly well, whether it was chasing the game back, whether it was pressing in the final third, whether it was winning the ball. He just seemed to be absolutely everywhere. 86 passing completion. 4 long balls completed out of 5, winning 6 duels, 2 interceptions, 2 clearances, 4 tackles, just absolutely everything you'd want from your kind of defensively minded, deep lying midfield player. What did you make of Declan Rice's performance today?
Listen, man, there are very few things that you could say negatively about Declan Rice. I agree, Chippy Boy, pure filth. It was just disgusting. But going back to Declan Rice, like since he's signed for the club, it shows, like, you would think that 105 million is a lot, but it's like a steal now because he's that type of player that can pull you out of trouble, create things out of nothing, stop a goal from happening. Like, he's that type of player. He's everywhere. He's just like that. He has that type of, I don't know, reach, if you will. So yeah, man, like him alongside Jorginho today, who, let me tell you, when I saw that team sheet, and I think I sent my team selection to the WhatsApp group, but I had Trossard down the middle. Jorginho, for me, is one of Mikel Arteta's best signings. And y'all are hearing this right now live on Arsenal Analysed with Jay Clegg and Neil Dwarica. Listen to what I'm saying. Jorginho is one of Mikel Arteta's best signings. Yes, he had some flops, but consider what Jorginho is doing in this team. He's a captain without the armband. He controls a lot of the game. He's one of the best to keeping the ball. And that was crucial to this win today. Like, you would look at our midfield and look at Liverpool's midfield, which is not a bad midfield. Liverpool has a very good midfield, but you have to look at who in our midfield is actually able to allow the rest of the team to do their job. And Jorginho is that. He's that type of player. So big up to Mikel Arteta. Big up for starting Jorginho in this team, man. Like, this was a big win. One game at a time, but it was a massive.
It was massive. It was. And yeah, Jorginho, he was one of those players today where when you look at Declan Rice, for example, he's very much kind of in your face, full of energy, really, really, really physical. And Jorginho is the opposite in terms of he goes about his business very quietly. He's there, but he's not, this massively physical character. He'll play the simple 5-yard passes. He'll break the lines with his passes when you're not expecting him to. He'll sneak around the back and steal the ball off of you as well. Just an all-round top class performance from Jorginho. And as you say, one of the older heads in the squad, definitely a captain amongst the team without the armband. And, looking at his stats here today, 87% passing accuracy, a key pass, 7 duels won, 2 clearances, 4 interceptions, 2 tackles, just absolutely top-notch stuff all round from Jorginho. And I don't think there's any arguments today, as the chat has already alluded to. Our midfield was absolutely awesome. And typically we do go on to look at maybe 1 or 2 other players. To be honest with you, there are several players that we could easily talk about in this show in terms of good performances. Was there anyone that you wanted to look at and discuss quickly at all, Neil?
Yeah, I wanted to look at Bukayo Saka's stats, if you don't mind, because
sure.
While he did score that goal, he kind of had a bit of a quiet game, for his standards. I mean, he came off a little bit early. He scored a decent goal, but he just seemed to be a little bit quiet today. How many touches of the ball did he have today?
42. Yeah. Low passing accuracy, involved in a handful of duels. Defensively, he's normally quite good, but not what you'd expect him to have high numbers in anyway. To be honest with you, the one thing that makes me laugh about Bukayo Saka is the narrative that we've heard all season about Bukayo Saka, and it just goes to show the levels and the expectation on his shoulders. And I see this as a positive, not as a negative. And for quite a while now, people have been saying that, Saka isn't performing. He isn't at the levels that we expect him to be at. You know, there were times last season and earlier this season where, you know, he literally carried Arsenal. And we know that he's not playing at that level right now. But the scary thing is, whilst he's not playing at that level, he's still contributing to goals. He's still contributing to assists. So I look forward to this purple patch that I'm hoping he hits towards the business end of the season when it all clicks into gear. And he's absolutely on fire. But I suppose that's what you get with potentially world-class players, is that they can still have average games of football, but influence the game and have an effect on the game, which was very much the case again today. He scored a really important part of the game when Arsenal were on top, in the right place at the right time, whilst there was lots and lots of pressure. So yeah, really, really, really good point on Bukayo Saka. I think I saw in the chat as well that someone wanted to have a quick look at Kai Havertz. Had a fairly low rating today, which is quite surprising because I think one thing that maybe SofaScore doesn't take into consideration is what he does off the ball and what he does for players around him, and not in the sense of what Gabriel Jesus does when he likes to bring the likes of Martinelli and Bukayo Saka in around the back. He does it in a very different way, from a physical point of view, being a presence in the box, pulling defenders out of the way. And if we have a look here, he has got an expected goals of 1. Obviously, that chance in the first half, which fell to Saka eventually. He's had a handful of shots, great passing accuracy, 85%, 2 of which were key passes, involved in 24 duels, winning 6 of them, 3 clearances as well. So very much trying to be a handful, no doubt, at the base of Liverpool's midfield, but also for the likes of Van Dijk and Konate. What did you make of his performance today?
Listen, man, this is I get it. There's a calculation to give this rating of the player, but I kind of disagree with it. As you rightfully said, he's involved in 24 duels. 24 duels, right? 24 duels. That's like the outcome may not be to his favor, but think about what's going on during the he's involved.
Yeah, he's applying that pressure.
Yeah, he's applying that pressure. And listen, 6.2 is definitely not a good. It's not doing this guy any justice, man. And he gets a lot of stick for it, and I get it. He doesn't have that aggressive going after it, but he tries, and I think what he did today, and he's done it before in other games, he actually is a cause and effect type of player. He does something, Konate gets a red card. He tries to take a shot at goals, Saka scores. So without that player being there, who is doing that for us?
Yeah, exactly.
And
for the sorry, go on.
It's a shame that Saka didn't get a brace today, because anything on it, an eyebrow, an ear, a shoulder, it's in the back of the net.
It is. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So, okay, well, I think that's going to about wrap things up for the player section of this show, which does bring us towards the end of today's show. Please do let me know in the comment section now who was your Arsenal man of the match. I'm sure there's going to be quite a few different names as opposed to just the one for a change. And I'll wait to see what your comments are as we finish things up. And whilst you do that, don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button. It really does help me out, and it gets the show out there for the algorithm. And if you're new around here, subscribe as well. As I said earlier on in the show, if you were around, we've got plenty more of these reaction and analysis shows coming over the next few weeks for some huge games, including Arsenal's return to Champions League knockout football. What a huge, enticing tie that is for us Gooners to look forward to. But just the one comment at the moment coming in the chat for man of the match, which is Jorginho. Again, it's really kind of hard to argue with Jorginho being man of the match, or as Chippy Boy says here, Jorginho or Declan Rice. Again, it's really, really, really difficult to say and split hairs there. And then, yes, I do remember Ben White mugging off Diaz with the nuts in the first half on the right-hand side. He was eventually fouled for his troubles, if I remember rightly as well. So, the shithousery from Ben White is brilliant. Long may it continue. But
Definitely.
are there any final thoughts, Neil, before we sign off for the afternoon or evening, wherever you're watching from?
Well, the one thing I'd like to say is that, there's still some very impactful players that are on the sidelines, injured or whatever the case may be. You don't know what's really happening with these guys, Thomas Partey especially, if he's actually really injured, and we're just not saving him for the latter part of the season. But it's very hopeful. I think we have an exciting latter part of the season, and I just look forward to it, man. I hope everyone today in the chat, big up everyone, Arsenal A5, Chippy Boy, Rancid Pumpkin, big up everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining. Big up man like Tony Jr. I see you still in there. Hope you're having a good time at that party. Those Puerto Ricans get crazy.
Very true, man. Very, very true. Yeah. And just to mirror what Neil said, thank you very much to everyone who has come along and shown support on the show today. Whether or not you're someone who just likes to watch or someone who likes to get involved in the chat, your support is greatly appreciated, either which way you decide to show it. But for now, that is going to about wrap things up for Arsenal Analysed Live. We are back in the title race for now, and it makes things just that much more spicy for the rest of the season. Hopefully you can join us on this channel for future games. But for now, I'm JC. This is my colleague, Neil. Thank you very much for coming along. Stay safe, take care, and come on, you Gunners.
3-1.